Live from Toronto. It's just talking. Da, 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 da. And it's getting later and later. We're back to, I remember way in the beginning we started this and there was nothing but technical challenges. So we seem to be back in that for the month of October. So hopefully November soon and that should be different. So I am tickled pink to have Aisha back in the co-anchor seat.
Hello.
And we are going to be doing this. It's going to be myself and Heather or myself and Aisha, and it's going to be alternating weeks. And so the neat thing, yay, Asha, Johnny McGueda, that's a blast from the past. So
My
we're,
lovely Gwenda Lambert, thank you so much for that lovely and warm welcome. Ooh, sending you big hugs.
didn't you miss us?
Did.
Did.
Missed you. I'm so happy to be back after that little hiatus and grateful to be here. Thank you so much. And grateful to Heather for all the amazing conversations that you both have had. Grateful to you, of course, and all of our viewers, everyone who's in our in our circle.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, exactly. So
Mm.
we're doing a neat blend today because a couple of weeks ago for Thanksgiving, Heather and I had a show called Oh My God, Family Dinners. And it was all about, when we can get ourselves, really worked up about being around family. Um, and sometimes the reality is that our family may not be, one of the things that I liked best about from Heather's conversation and I last week was the fact that I hope that you can include this statement, but not a lot of people can, where she said, my family doesn't necessarily understand what I do or why I do it, but they always support what I do.
Mm.
And I love that phrase and I wish that for everybody.
Hmm.
Seriously,
Yeah.
because we are all different. And when we get into the family dynamic where these people literally know where the bodies are buried, they've known us, we know how to push each other's buttons. And then there's the potential of having people that actually know how to manipulate really, really well. And and it can become a mess. And what we talked about in the Oh My God, It's Family Dinners was about it's our perspective. That sometimes when we go to these times, it's important to try and keep an open heart and an open mind. Now, Aisha and her purposeful communication track, one of the things that she really focuses on, and we've had many conversations on, is family estrangement, which is
Hmm.
a real thing. We have parents who, kids who are estranged from the parents. There's siblings that don't get along. There's and it's very real because and very harmful, right? And a lot of times we can keep putting ourselves in these family situations because it's our family, and maybe one day everything will be like those beautiful Hallmark commercials. I like to call them Hallmark holidays. And we're coming up, starting next week. We're in November, and that C word's coming up, but it's not just Christmas. It's, there's the most holidays, there's the most celebrations. We just had Diwali, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So, uh, where it's family time.
Yeah, there's
So,
also a Jewish high holiday that just happened as well. So, yes, all kinds of holidays in the latter part of the year.
So I'm going to hand it over to Aisha, who's going to start off our just talking and give her perspective on, because I've got that last conversation was Heather and myself. So we're going to let Aisha take it and we'll take the conversation from there.
Thank
So
you,
over to
Gwen.
you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Goodness.
Well, look, I mean, I'm laughing, but family estrangement is not something that's easy to talk about. It's very challenging. And I appreciate the idea of really taking a second look at our own perspective. And I would really I want to really dig down into that because when we come to these holidays and we are inundated, and blessings to everyone who has happy families, supportive families, loving families, families that can get together and generally get through things with little stress or you know less stress than what, for example, I might experience or other people might experience. But it's we have to also keep in mind that we don't see the whole picture. We don't know what's happening behind the scenes with people. And so when we look at that and we compare our situation, our family situation, to what's happening there, or if we don't have a family situation that we can compare, we experience exclusion and we experience grief, right? Because other people are experiencing something that is supposed to be everyone's birthright, but we don't have it. And that hurts, right? And so when we look at perspective, I think what's important is to be affirming of ourselves, to affirm that we're allowed to have our feelings. If you feel grief, you feel disappointment, you feel sadness, you feel tension about going to your family event, if you feel uncomfortable, if you feel unseen, unheard, then affirm yourself, validate yourself that this is how you feel. It's not that this is just the way that it is in my family, and so I have to accept that. No, you don't. You don't have to accept it, but you can acknowledge that this is what it is, because when we first acknowledge it and we affirm the effect it has on us, that gives us the power then to make choices about our perspective and our actions. And so nobody is suggesting that you turn yourself off so that you go into these events and you're nice to people. No, it's about being self-aware, and it's about being self-affirming, and also having a critical eye. So you want to look at what's happening around you, and as much as possible, yes, we do want to tamp down the reaction that we're having to it so we can understand it. We can understand what those family dynamics are, what those cycles are, and we can make better choices about how we choose to engage them. But first and foremost, be affirming. And then secondly, be critical. Critical, when I say critical, I just mean be analytic. Look at it from a distance. Be discerning. So being critical just means look at it without the reactivity and see if you can get a different perspective on what's happening. Right? Gwen, what do you think about that?
I think that's, again, you're talking about this, and I remember, because I do have, a little bit of challenge and I remember one time I was going to a family event and I was having a panic attack. I didn't know that that's what it was at the time,
Mm,
because it's amazing what we do to ourselves. This whole suck it up stuff. Like, what you feel doesn't matter.
yeah,
And I
that's
was
right.
driving a car on a highway with four people in my car. And I know at least one of them knew that I was having a panic attack and was just trying to keep me straight and clear. And that led to the choice of, like, well, I can't put myself, no, let's use more powerful. I won't put myself in this situation. And but the thing is, that took, oh my God, 20, 30 years
Yeah. Hmm.
before I actually acknowledged, well, and I'm saying acknowledged, but I didn't really know what a panic attack was. I didn't I didn't know, because there wasn't as much information as there is now about this kind of stuff. Number one,
Yeah.
but I think that the part that I loved about you is almost like making yourself the observer, like removing the emotion. And the thing there is that it allows you to sort of sit back and go, okay, is it good for me? Well, is that good for anybody else in the family? But the one thing, and this is one of the reasons why even I love the grief recovery method, is it's a proactive way. One of the things that I've joked about is a registered therapy fund, that once you hit 25 or 30, you sit down and in some sort of structured way, I'd love it if everybody could have therapy, that you sit down with your siblings and talk about what life was in your home growing up, especially if there's any kind of dysfunction. And that you can actually honor the fact that, okay, we're siblings. And when you get into good relationships, and I mean solid relationships, it's because everybody involved in those relationships is committing to that relationship, right?
Hmm.
So
Yep.
it's two sided. So a lot of things that people talk about now is that the husband and wife, parents, you need to be a team first. So
Hmm.
that needs to come, because your kids are going to, this doing everything for the kids. It doesn't help the kids as you go along, because you have to be, everybody has to make a choice to own what they're doing on their good and bad days, which also means giving each other praise and saying, You know what? You're a really good, we do it to our friends probably. I hope we do it to our family. I hope we have the opportunity where we say, I really appreciated that you did that. So it's sitting back enough to have, as you said, that critical view of what's my part in this relationship? How am I coming? And then the second part, who is it that I want to be? And if it's still not safe for me to show up in this environment, that's when I take myself out. Instead of working ourselves up to every single time we go into that room, we're going back to 20, 30, 40-year-old triggers that are affecting us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Does
And
that make sense? What is that?
that's a lot. You gave me a lot to work with, and I really appreciate that. And I think that you're right on the money in that we've talked about this many times on Just Talking, is that you know that you're in a good relationship when you have safety and you have agency. And that goes not just for your romantic relationships or your your partnerships with people long term, but also your family relationships. If you don't have safety and agency, you need to recognize that for yourself, because I think that part of the issue is that people don't identify family estrangement. They don't think about it in terms of, oh my goodness, I'm estranged from my family. And that can be varying degrees. You can have family estrangement where people don't talk to each other at all, right? There's no communication. But you can have kind of like estrangement that is salient in some situations and salient in others. So you can have no communication except on these two things, like especially if parents are getting older, or family estrangement can also arise when people separate, when they divorce, when there's kids involved. There can be estrangement in those ways because of that, of the breakdown of that system, right? So there's all kinds of salience here about what an estrangement might look like. So you might not identify it as an estrangement. So part of it is to look at it and say, well, do I have safety? Do I have agency? What level of connection and belonging do I feel in this environment? Do I feel like I belong here? Don't always think of yourself as the square peg that never fits in the round hole, right? You're putting yourself down, you're devaluing yourself because you're thinking there's something wrong with you, when in the meantime, the dysfunction that exists in the family, or the dysfunction that exists in that environment, is not, you're not the you're not the cause of that, but you are a result of that. You're a result of the way that things happen. And that distance, creating that observer role for yourself, and this goes for any difficult relationship, when you start kind of just separating yourself and looking at how someone is behaving, you're going to see that people who um, can't manage their own emotions don't just do it with you. You're going to see them do it with everybody else as well. Maybe you think, well, that person always singles me out. But when you step back and you watch them, you can see that they're always kind of pushing and, pinching and tweaking other people to get the same kind of response, because that's their button, that's their emotional payoff. That's what they get out of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's that element of it. Now, when it comes to the relationships where you want to create more safety, create more agency, absolutely. The affirming and the critical is very important in your relationships that are closest to you. Don't say nothing when something needs to be said. Say something, but say it also with an affirmation beside it, and on a regular basis. Be affirming, be connected, be engaged, be appreciative, value the people that are important to you, so that you're able to work through things with with more understanding. If you're constantly criticizing somebody else, or you're constantly on the receiving end of criticism, how much do you want to collaborate with that person? How much do you want to work with that person? I would say the law of diminishing return. No, you're not going to want to do that. You're going to be like, okay, you know what? No, I don't think so, because clearly you don't value what I bring to the table. And it's okay for you to feel like that as well, but don't be quiet about it. Make sure you're talking about it. And also model the behavior that you would like other people to show for you,
Mm-hmm.
right? Model that behavior in those relationships. So this is really, when we're talking about family estrangement, also what I liked about what you and Heather talked about and what you brought up again here is when we when we go into those environments, those 30, 40-year-old environments where there are all these triggers that are set up, we have been socialized to respond to those triggers in the same ways over and over again. If you need to go to a family dinner and you know that probably within an hour things are going to start going bad, just go for an hour.
Mm-hmm.
Just go for 45 minutes. Show your face because only if you want to. If you don't want to, affirm yourself, honor yourself. If you don't want to go, don't go. Think of it as a continuum. This is a continuum, and you're going to ebb and flow. Things are going to fluctuate. Allow yourself to go with that flow. When you start honoring yourself and listening to yourself, you're going to find that you have choices. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. You can decide, okay, I can't go for the whole evening, but I can show up for an hour. Or you could say, you know what, I'm not going to go at Thanksgiving, but I will go for a little while at Christmas. Like, you can make those decisions for yourself because those are things that allow us to be healthy and to take care of ourselves. And we have to prioritize ourselves because you can't help anybody else if your well is dry. If you don't have that oxygen mask on yourself, you can't help anyone else.
And exactly, I love it. I love it. And I mean, I think that's the interesting part when we're talking about self care. That we can love everybody in the world, but if there's not two people involved in that choice, even if that choice is, you know what, we're gonna go and we're gonna give each other space. So you can be at one end of the room, I can be at the other end. You can be at one end of the table. We're not going to get into each other's conversations, or because if there's something that we have, like one of the big family estrangements is parents and kids.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's one of the harshest ones where kids are bad mouthed by one parent or the other. It's usually in some sort of divorce or separation. And that's really harsh because if you know friends, I know we all have friends that are parents that have these kind of situations. I wish it was less involved, but I think that's one of the greatest challenges is that when we make our decisions, especially if we have, if we're the children of divorced parents, we have to at some point in time take a deep breath and realize that nobody is all good or all evil. And you know that's one of the greatest things is that we have responsibility for our emotions, but we first have to be able to embrace those emotions. And by that, as you said, if they're going to show up, they're going to be doing that kind of stuff to all other people. So even if you are the recipient of that tweaking, you know, you have to be able to at one point take a breath and know that something's hurting that other person enough that they're seeing you as the enemy too. And this is not condoning in any way, shape, or form. This again, as the observer, okay, well, we're seeing this, and this leads to the point of like, okay, if you can't go for more than an hour, then you don't. But that's still your choice to say, I still want to show up. I still want to, I want to be involved. But it's like you really have to put yourself first when we have this self care, right? And I think that's one of the hardest things um, because in our families, that's our family of origin, right? And it's challenging when because again, as you said, we're not seeing the whole picture. We don't know everybody. We can grow up in the same family in the same home and have completely different situations. We have
Mm-hmm.
completely different temperaments. We're all individuals. So, it may be timing. Um, and I think that sometimes actually, I just know in my experience, sometimes it hurts even more because it's like, I know that you're in pain for something, and I know it doesn't come from me, but it doesn't matter what I know. how can I connect with you, and to keep that open. And that's in my situation, and that's the thing is that all of our relationships are unique. All of them are unique. There's no two relationships that are the same. And I think that, there's words these days like narcissism and, you know, manipulator and trigger. We throw around all these. It's great that these mental health words are thrown out there, but I believe there's also a whole bunch of people that are undiagnosed that can really, and this is where we have to be able to talk about our feelings, because this gets into the root. The root of it comes from family, and the root of it affects our family. And if we don't really get okay with our origin of family, the family of origin, then we are going to continue. We can think that we've dealt with all this stuff, but we're still going to take it forward. So it takes some sort of work to be able to say, who am I as an individual? And then who am I as in all these relationships? And what is it that I can do, and who is it I choose to spend my time with? I think I went off on a little bit of a ramble there, but um, I think that ties in with the fact that it takes work no matter what. We can't just keep showing up at these and getting mad because our parents are our parents. So one thing about death too, right? My mom cut me up like the 2 weeks before she died. She's like, I was there crying because the doctors are talking about stuff. Oh, there you go with a. And I just look at her and I'm like, oh man, mom, okay. And you can't expect her to not be who she is. And so, but I smile at that now, because that's who she is. She cannot stop being who she is any more than you can stop being who you are. So
Yeah.
that's my 2 cents there.
No, that's great. There's a lot of stuff. Again, I love that you always bring so many different elements back to the conversation that we can pick up on. And I think that one of the really important ones that you brought up was around being okay, finding your okayness for yourself. And I think that the thing is that especially with family estrangement, sometimes you have to create your own okayness without resolution. And that can be very difficult. That can be very challenging, because you want to be able to, I don't think I would say there are very few people who, if they're in a family estrangement situation, would not want to experience relief, the relief of some kind of resolution, whatever way it plays out. Like, I mean, especially if it was some kind of an affirming and honoring resolution would ideally be best. But a lot of times, especially in family estrangement situations, you don't have any control over what the other person is doing or saying or interacting or behaving. And so what does it mean to be resolved with something? What does it mean to be kind? So with purposeful communication, sometimes kindness is not engaging when someone is being argumentative, right? Not responding when someone is being argumentative, or stepping out of the room when someone is deliberately going after you, or just walking away from a conversation saying, you know what, I don't feel comfortable. I don't want to talk about this. I'd rather not have this conversation. And allowing yourself to just take care of yourself. And in a way, you know, some people might look at that as being, well, you're not standing up for yourself, or you're not, but you are. What you're doing is you're making a choice about how to exercise your energy. You're making a choice about how to engage with the person in front of you. And I will agree with you in this point that until we come to some resolution within ourselves, it is very hard to be authentically open-minded and compassionate towards other people. Because if you are carrying pain, and you are carrying feelings like anger and disappointment and resentment and anxiety and fear and unsafety, when you're dealing with the people that are supposed to be the ones that are supposed to be your blood, supposed to be your family, then it's very hard to be compassionate and to be, to look at them with that kind of compassion. And I would offer that, that turn the compassionate lens on yourself first.
Mm-hmm.
Be affirming, be compassionate to yourself, be critical of what's happening around you. Notice how you're participating. So, the kindness part of not engaging in uh, constant arguments with people is kind to them, but also kind to you because you're taking care of yourself. You're saying, you know what, I don't actually need to do this.
Mm-hmm.
I can just take care of myself. I can go talk to other people or I can leave.
Mm-hmm.
I have that power. Those things are empowering.
Mm-hmm.
When we keep going in the same cycles, we're not empowered, we're reacting,
Mm-hmm.
and we're reacting to the same things, right? So, when it comes to self care, it is really important to get that distance, get that observer role happening, and to use it, employ that observer perspective as much as you can. If you can't go from estrangement, anger, frustration, sadness, uh, resentment, anxiety, fear, all that stuff, to compassion, that's normal. That's natural. You can't expect to go from 0 to 100. No, start working on. Just start working on how can I be discerning? How can I dial down my reaction? How can I get to a place where, okay, now I'm neutral. Now I don't have a negative or a positive reaction to this person. I'm just going to see how they behave and I'm just going to start to accept that this is who they are and then slowly make your way to that compassion. So, this is, like I said, it's a continuum, it's fluid, it's a path. Be gentle to yourself, choose your engagements, choose them wisely, take care of yourself. And being compassionate is also acknowledging your own feelings and saying and being honest and saying, I wish I could feel differently. I
Mm-hmm.
wish I could be more loving. I wish I could be more compassionate. Like, even allowing yourself to get negative out of that negativity and say, I want something different for myself. I would like to feel differently.
Mm-hmm.
Even allowing yourself to start making those mental shifts will help you get there, right? So, this conversation in particular, we're talking about self care. We're talking about how these engagements affect us, how we need to look after. And, when you're carrying family estrangement, when you're engaged or not engaged through a family estrangement, there's all kinds of things that happen from your health perspective, mental health, physical health, spiritual health, emotional health, all those things are impacted. And so, taking that time to connect with your core elements, go through what's happening in your body, heart, mind, and spirit, these are also really important things, factors to take care of for your self-care through things like that. And then in the coming weeks, as we keep going through, we'll talk about different elements of family estrangement and communication, engagements, putting down boundaries, things like that, how to maintain those. We're going to talk about those in a little more depth as we go, among other things.
Mm-hmm.
But for today, yeah, these are big things to think about. And especially as we come to the holidays, remember also that what you see on Instagram is a very small sampling of a whole lot of people, out of which there are probably more than you think that are experiencing something similar to you.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Deep and meaningful all the way. And I just like to point out here too that there are families that yell at each other all the time, but they keep nothing in their heart. If they're
Yeah.
pissed off, they go, and then they walk out and it's all good. It's like
Yeah.
because they know each other and you can see that. You see that whatever they're doing, it's like, oh, you're better, but I love you. I love you comes out, the hugs come out, the support for whatever you need comes out. So don't that I think that's the other thing too. Do you remember My Big Fat Greek Wedding, that
Mm,
movie?
yeah.
So that is one of those. I think that was a really neat, a somewhat stereotypical, which is I think some of the fun that it was poking at it, is the fact that the stoic uh, English parents who were like, oh, played extremely well by Fiona Gray. And, anyways, um, that's also normal, right? Like, like, I think one of the challenges too is, and I'm putting this in here because a lot of times when things are put, if we're talking with an excited voice, then this means we're angry. When that depends on where you are and what context that is. So if your family, if that is a norm, but you feel loved and accepted, that can be the norm. People don't talk about their feelings. It doesn't matter if it's calm and it's a it's a logical mind led discussion. That's one thing. Are we getting into our heart? Can we say what's in our heart? And first of all, as you say, taking that compassionate lens and looking at ourselves, and then also having that reflection to be able to look at other people and understand that our parents are our parents. They come from where they come from, and what are the losses, and just to throw this in, because I know with my mother, she didn't express her feelings so much, but I realized putting it in a timeline together, she had the death of both of her best friends right after the death of her father.
Mm.
And what I do now with the grief, and especially the grief recovery method that allows you to look at your life in a holistic way,
Mm.
I didn't look at that till now. But as a kid, somebody who's going through life and trying to, so it's important for us to keep that. It has to start with you, though. If you don't stop and go, okay, I don't feel comfortable, I don't feel safe, you're not going to be able to process that kind of depth. You're not going to be able to get into, okay, what does make me feel safe? Because you have to take that choice at some point to say, I'm going to have the courage to say, I'm not getting what I need, and then start inner circle and go out, right? That, and you are the beginning of your inner circle. And I'm looking forward to these conversations as we go along, because again, you're doing it with communication, and to me the interesting part is when we understand each other's stories, our losses, our highs and our lows, from more than just because our parents are human, our siblings are human. Who knows if they've just had a heartbreak because maybe you guys never talked to each other about the first love that you had and your first kiss and whatever else happened, as is normal. Hopefully we're close enough to our siblings, maybe we're not. That's why even having your bestie growing up, that can be that can be almost the same kind of relationship, that it's like, as we grow, are we growing together? When it started, did you actually support us? Or am I just looking now with 40-year-old eyes and going, yeah, but I'm not getting anything out of this? One of the things that you brought up a few weeks ago, Aisha, was the reciprocity of relationships.
Absolutely. Yep. Hmm.
And so when it comes to families, we all have our roles to play, but is there reciprocity? Is there, I appreciate you, you appreciate me, I love you, you love me, and is it done consciously? And again, getting into like love languages, if you wish. Do you know your own love language, and do you know the love languages of those around you? And again, all these things are real. I don't need gifts. I don't want little trinkets. I'm not a tchotchke kind of girl. I'd rather you say, let's go for a walk. But I'm a, what is it, acts of kindness. I don't even know what it is exactly. But if you know somebody does like little trinkets, then go and get them like a bright, shiny little book, because it just says, this, I'm thinking of you. So this is the kind of stuff that it takes small things with intention to make a big difference in relationships, and it's
Hmm.
got to start with us.
Yeah, absolutely.
So look at, did
100%.
we just go on and on? No, we're around half an hour, right? Aren't we? Because
Yeah, I
we
think
just
so.
start
Yeah,
talking and it goes, right? So
it does.
how,
Yeah.
any last thoughts on today and how you see maybe the next couple of sessions rolling out?
Hmm. Thank you. It's great to be back. So thank you so much, Gwen. And I love our conversations as always. I think what I would just end up with is again to come back to how do you know it's family estrangement? It's family estrangement when your relationships are always strained, when you don't have safety, you don't have agency, when you dread going to any kind of family function. There is some level of estrangement involved, especially if you don't have communication with people, if you are actually physically, emotionally, communication wise completely separated from them. That's also a thing. So keep, it's just something to start observing, something to start thinking about. Look at patterns with discernment, take on that observer role, be compassionate to yourself, and remember that it's a continuum. You're going to find your way through it one way or another, you're going to find your way through it if you choose to, right? And once you do that, you don't necessarily need to have resolution with the other person or the other people. You are able to find a resolution that works for you within your own self, right? And there can always be an opening if you want there to be. And if it's better for you to just move on, then you can also do that. So I think what we're going to do in the next few weeks is we're going to talk about how to have those engagements, how to be self-caring, how to be self-affirming in those engagements that you continue to have, how to navigate our own emotions, how to process emotions, how we communicate with ourselves, how we communicate with others, those kinds of things. So yeah, there's a lot of ground to cover here. And, if anything else comes up in any other area, we'll definitely talk about that as well.
Yeah, and drop in your questions if you have anything along this. And I guess, and again, this is why I love Grief Recovery Method. I love your coaching. I love it. It's great to go to coaching. It's great to go through coaching programs, but one of the things, my focus is for you to first start with you. So that means if you find yourself getting emotional, overwhelmed, whatever, then it's time to get in touch with you. Let's get in touch with your emotions, the ones that you feel more comfortable with, and other ones. Because if something is making you emotional, it's usually something there. And again, what I love about the grief recovery method is it allows you a way to look at your life and naturally set boundaries, because you start seeing patterns in yourself and your behaviors. And when you're protecting yourself with certain behaviors, and then it's like, didn't know I was doing that. And then with that awareness, okay, I want to go to Ayesha and learn more about purposeful communication. And that's because I was just that's a whole reflection for me, is like, what was the biggest turning point in wherever I am today, which is, that's the one thing. We're always doing 100%. We don't go, okay, today I'm going to show up 40%. We're doing 100% wherever we're at. Sometimes it's slouching around on the couch the whole day. Sometimes it's working like a demon for 12 hours because you're so inspired. Whatever comes, comes. Let it come. And as you become more comfortable and you get to know those feelings, then you can start working with that, right? Then you can start getting more intentional on, like, oh, okay, where's that coming from? Is there something that I need to pay attention with? And that's with all of our relationships, but it starts with family. So that's my last 2 cents.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great way to end up. And for anyone who wants more information on purposeful communication, on empower the two programs that I offer around this, one is Empowered Expression, which is all about personal empowerment through purposeful communication, and the Purposeful Path through family estrangement. You can definitely get in touch with me there. I'm sorry about my kitty cat there, who's demanding that I come out and feed him. But yeah, so you can get in touch with me as well. And the grief recovery method, an amazing way to get in touch with your feelings, dealing with, really just even acknowledging the grief that's there from things that are lost along the way, people, relationships, opportunities, situations. I went through this with Gwenda. She was an amazing leader and facilitator for me, and I am forever grateful for that experience. So, yeah, excellent, excellent, excellent. So yes, anyone get in touch with either one of us, and we're happy to support you.
And we'll have the links on Just Talking, and it'll be posted here. It's on the YouTube, Just Talking. And I know that my dear friend Aisha is going to put it on her Purposeful Path Communication. And we'll get because you've got a YouTube for that too, right?
Yes, I do. Yep, yep.
But Just Talking has our blend for the last over a year, right? We
Yeah,
should mark
absolutely.
our like anniversary. I think it has
I know.
or something. So we're coming
Yeah.
up to 2 years.
Oh my goodness, we have to do something.
We will. Well, that's like 6 months away. We can work on it.
Yes, we will. Okay,
Okay,
sounds
love
good.
you. Thank you.
Love
Thank you,
you. Thank
everybody,
you.
for
Thank you,
watching.
everyone.
And
See
we'll
you
see you
again
next
soon.
week with Heather.
All
Okay.
right. Take care.
Take care.
Bye-bye. Bye.